How are you, Anna?
I'm well. How about yourself? How was your trip?
My trip was fun. It was only for a few days, but I was in Dubrovnik, Croatia.
I know you went all the way across the world. How was that? How was the weather?
It was supposed to be raining 3 days straight, but after the first half day, it cleared up and it was sunny, but did manage to take a couple of walks, a tour of the city
That's
and all that.
nice. Did you like it?
I loved it. Yeah,
You
I've been there twice.
did?
This one, this time was for work. The first time was a couple of years with my wife, and really, really beautiful place. Beautiful place. Great seafood, great people too. Welcome to Hitmakers, How Brands Influence Culture, where every other week, Anna and I explore cultural influence and how brands can create it.
I'm Anna Angelic. I'm a brand executive, author of The Business of Aspiration and Hitmakers, and writer of The Sociology of Business. With us, we have Vanya Arsenov, who is our producer and makes sure that we look and sound great. Welcome to the final episode of season 1 of Hitmakers. Rei, I cannot thank you enough
Same
for
here.
being such an amazing interlocutor.
Thank you. And I'm Rei and Ana. I'm a creative entrepreneur and the founding partner of an innovation firm called I&Co, based in New York, Tokyo, and Singapore. As Anna mentioned, so this is the 12th episode of season 1 of Hitmakers. And starting with the next episode, you have a different partner that you'll be sparring with, Anna. And then I have a different platform. I have a podcast called The Creative Mindset, which also releases every 2 weeks. I also have a newsletter called The Intersection, so you can find me at those locations.
So with that said, Rei, you and I started this back in October. It's 6 months ago.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
even to go back, I think we started talking about this, I think last spring, because remember you and I met in Cannes in June of 2024, and we did kind of like a test run, and then we massaged a little bit, and then we officially started in the fall of 2024. And 12 episodes, but it's been almost 6 months.
6 months. I know, you're absolutely right. And so how was the judging? Did you see any good stuff?
I have mixed feelings, to be completely honest, about these types of judging opportunities, because it may not be an accurate reflection of what's going on in the industry. And it's a very skewed, one-dimensional view of what's going on. However, putting my cynical hat aside, it's a great way to look at a volume of work in such a short, concentrated amount of time. And also just to talk about the work with fellow marketers and creatives. And, when it comes to these types of creative and marketing endeavors, there are no right or wrong answer. And different people have different perspectives and different opinions. So, and then, the debate got pretty heated, but in a good way. It was never mean, but it was a healthy disagreements.
I see. Yeah. You see, I have no patience for that. I did that, God bless you. No, Ray is really nice. He's known as a nice guy in the industry. And he's all about the next generation. He created young lions,
Thank you.
I had patience as a stepping stone, selfishly early in my career. Then I was like, there is nothing for me in this.
No, he does take patience.
After Effie's, I was like, bye.
So you did Effie's?
I did when I was still at agencies, when I was at Havas, Slacks Hub. So
okay.
in 2017 maybe,
Okay.
and after that I was.
No, it is.
And
it
also
is
I went
time-consuming.
brand side, and they don't.
No, we had people from the brand side. It wasn't just
I
agency
know,
people.
but I don't know if I usually just, because then they invite you for some other stuff, book, luxury, something
Yeah.
I did go once when it was in Courchevel. So it was some luxury, and it was one afternoon, and the rest of that was just fun and games in Courchevel. It was good.
No, this was leading up to the in-person judging. It was weeks of judging online, and literally hundreds of entries. So I was clicking through case study after case study endlessly.
But then you have that sort of education mindset, which is admirable, honestly. And, pushing. I think there are different ways. Actually, I don't want to sell myself too short, because I think there are different ways to put discipline forward.
Yeah.
and educate, and I see my newsletter as that, and
Yeah.
like based on subscribers and so on. That's number one. Number two is actually bigger picture, and I think that maybe that's a nice segue into our three main takeaways, which is
That's right.
every time I was like looking and judging that work, I was always like, but what does it have to do with the real world in a sense of business? Especially when I went brand side, and you see how much of decision making is actually not that front end creativity. It's actually creativity as a mindset at the so-called back end. So that's a good way maybe to introduce our first topic. As you and I discussed, and what we want to share with our listeners as in Leo's summary for this season was like the themes that emerged.
Yeah.
And the first one was related to what we were just talking just now about judging, about work, and about what creativity is and how often creativity actually comes at the end of the process, no matter what industry you are. You can be CPG, you can be hospitality, you can be automotive, you can be fashion, no matter what. Creativity is something that is considered as something for judging a product, and output that comes at the end of that helps marketing sell things. And I think both of us in our work, you with I and Co, and your clients, and my work with my clients, and my brand work on the brand side, the chief brand officer, is that creativity is actually a mindset. And what, like, rather than that being like a marketing catchphrase, it is actually solving problems in a creative way throughout the entire value chain. And I would like to hear your input, and then I'll share examples.
One of the things that when I started my company 9 years ago that I didn't do was to have a creative department or call a group of people creatives or, creative department. Because the minute that you label a person or a team or department creative, it implies, whether intentionally or not, that other people aren't creative. So it's kind of ironic for me to say, because I grew up being a quote unquote creative throughout my career. My background is design by trade. But as I grew up in this industry, I always belonged to the creative department. But I always felt guilty about that label because, like I said, it implied that other people couldn't be creatives or creative. I was talking to, I don't know if you know this guy, Stefan Sagmeister, who's a really influential graphic designer. And he was talking about Apple and how much dedication that they have to creativity and quality. Jonathan Ive, when he was still at Apple, he was designing a new generation of iMac, which didn't have a body. It was just a screen. And then there was a stand behind it. And the manufacturer that they were using in China, in order to create that stand, it had to be done in two pieces. But what he requested all the way through the company and the manufacturing team, the operations team, and the finance team was to change the factory so that they can manufacture the stand in one piece. So there was no seam in the back of the monitor. Now, had they stayed with the original manufacturer that was making the stand in two pieces, financially, it would have been much better. Customer would not even realize, because it was on the back of the stand that you couldn't even see it. But he convinced other people in the company in other functions. And then the other functions, of course, it was going to be expensive and it was going to be such a hassle to change the factory from factory A to factory B. But it's that kind of commitment that business functions had, because the creativity as a business mindset, not just a business function or business operation, but business mindset is shared across functions. Because if it's not shared, it makes absolutely no sense.
It has to be, exactly. So that's when I talk, I usually say, hey, creativity in my presentations is the approach, not the output. And I say, it doesn't mean that everyone, you don't need financial controllers, to know PowerPoint or whatnot, Keynote or Figma or what. It's not the point, because the tools then, what you said, box you in. It's sharing that vision that is also financial vision, which means that you have a CFO and CEO on your side when you're trying to put forward a specific plan, a specific promise, and deliver on that promise, and what does it take and what the compromises are. That's unbelievably important. That alignment with the CFO. That's why I sort of brought that up. And it's not about, oh, you need to be creative with your accounting. Like, no, it's not about that. It's about bringing them in the process from a get-go and saying very clearly, hey, look, we're going to do this, maybe brand marketing, this cultural influence program. You're not going to see results for the first 6 months, for the first year. But then you can expect X, Y, Z. So there are always KPIs and there's always return on investment. But a lot of people make a mistake of sort of adhering to that Excel spreadsheet year on year that's basically fine as dream, because there is not that alignment. And obviously, if you have a good rapport, good relationship with the CEO, CFO as Chief Creative Officer, Chief Marketing Officer, Chief Brand Officer, then you say, hey, in the first month, you can see X, Y, Z. That's how we are going to know we are on the right track. Second month, third month, and you can course correct. That's how trust is built in that sense. And that's absolutely what you said, that alignment towards the common vision, which in your example was Apple is all about creativity, tools for creativity, innovation, one step ahead.
Have you, in your either direct experience working within brands or working with brands, or have you seen a recent case where creativity was a business mindset and then that manifested in a positive result? What would be an example? Like one example that I mentioned is one, but what would be an example that
For
you...
me, the example is also like that we've been doing at Banana at Esprit, which is like you start product design with product desirability and discoverability in mind. You always think, how is this going to look on Instagram? How is this going to look as a campaign? How is this going to be presented to customers in terms of styling? What is the image that we want to project? Because traditionally, you're sort of like, look what sold best last year. And you create more of it. Like this, you're proactive, you're putting forward the vision, but with the end customer in mind. How are they going to find about this on Instagram? Do you need specific colors? Do you need specific way, art direction? What models? Like that's why you sort of have to have the discipline from the beginning of the process and say, hey, these are the signature products, which means we need to repeat them season after season after season. So when that conversation starts, marketing conversation starts, creative conversation starts, before anything was even designed, you can really embed the marketing, the creative, the cultural influence from a get-go. And merchandising is obviously super important. But then you say, hey, what is our wholesale marketing? What is our web? What is our social? Like you go from the same starting point. It's almost the opposite. CFO and marketing or creative goes towards the vision, and this is the same starting point. All departments have the same creative springboard. You have that sort of playing field that is maybe seasonal or annual. So that is the process that I can attest to. Was introduced at Banana at Esprit. So that's a process as an example. Of that. And you see more and more brands doing things that are good for Instagram. That would be an example. Like, food packaging, for example. Or those little like chains that I was just playing with, like now chains for brands or Jacquemus, that little bag. That's like anything that's very Instagrammable retail. You're already thinking. So I do think there is sort of that kind of shortcuts between creative departments, quotation marks for those who can't see us, and other departments. But process is the most important. Everyone needs to sit in the room at the beginning. It's not sequential.
As you and I were talking about at the beginning, so I just came off of a few days of pretty intense creative judging process. So I was judging an award show called Andy Awards. And in the past few weeks or so, I had to look at like literally hundreds of case studies and examples of creative output over the past year and a half or so. And one company that kept coming up multiple times wasn't necessarily the company that I would have expected to be creative, but it was a French car company, Renault. They had multiple pieces that were getting recognized. And what that said to me was that they had, different like campaigns and different initiatives that they entered into an award show. And award show or not, that's not the important part. But what was notable about that was that one company consciously putting effort in creativity, and a lot of the initiatives that were getting highlighted, they were not typical like campaigns or marketing initiatives, but it was a company initiative. And everything that they did, you could see that it wasn't a function that owned it and that they just executed it independent of other functions. You could tell. So for instance, I'll just give you an example. There was it's not even a campaign, but initiative called a plugin for business. And basically it's Renault getting behind small businesses across the country and working with small business owners to install plug-in power stations at local stores.
Nice.
And then if a driver goes to that power station and he uses that power station, they get a coupon from that small business. So it's an infrastructure, right?
That's
and
amazing.
It's not a small investment that they made. They had to make a fairly significant investment to do it. And it was a small idea, but like a very big vision for them. And you could tell that multiple functions had to collaborate to make something like that happen.
Yes.
And that's just one example, but they had an initiative like that multiple times, like other initiatives. And you could tell that the company embraced that creative mindset as opposed to, hey, this is just a functional thing.
I love that. And that reminds me of IKEA. And that's probably a good segue into the next theme, is because you know how IKEA really quickly responds what's happening in culture with their spoofs, but then also they have those like, I think 3 departments. One is like innovation, the other is sustainability, and the third is consumer products or something.
Okay.
And they have a lot of collaborations, and you can't do those collaborations like Scent collaboration with Bayardo, for example, or light collaboration with lighting brands, or Off-White back in the day 10 years ago. Like if that doesn't happen on the level of supply, production, marketing, creative distribution, it just won't happen. So I think that IKEA is sort of unified and has a sort of holistic approach, whereas each one of those verticals, even sustainability, how embedded they are in providing sustainable energy to communities in Africa and so on. So it's kind of like having multiple legs and being very connected with culture is also showing flat organization, or organization that has a process that can respond very quickly, which is, again, the easiest way to see that is like how nimble they are in their, how quickly they catch what's happening in culture. But that's also a reflection of how their entire organization is nimble and changeable. Because they figured out, in order to stay relevant because their products are almost CPG. They're so cheap. In order to get more people to buy, they need to collaborate. There's something always needs to be new. Otherwise, they're in a mature market. How do you grow in mature market?
The thing, another thing that now that you mention IKEA, is that their way of behaving as a company, whether it's product centric or marketing centric, it's always linked to or rooted in their products. They don't do a lot of like brand marketing. But it's very much about the product, which is this second point that products are what builds brands. It's not just brand marketing, but it's product led, to use your words, product led marketing is the new brand building, basically.
Yes. And I would like to add asterisks, because product needs to be good. You can't build, which is, but then again, I do believe that like the most iconic brands of today, as we talked in a very early episodes, are those that spun the entire brand around them. Levi's, Doc Martens, Nike, even IKEA, because the value innovation that the founder of IKEA did was like, oh, the most expensive part of the value chain with furniture is its shipment. It's like, how do you transport the fully assembled furniture? So for him, it's like, I'm going to slash prices and I'm going to make that up with putting the cost of assembly on customers. But that's, again, product innovation, because you make products such that it can be assembled at home.
Right.
And I do think that IKEA does have brand marketing. Those print ads that are always funny and so on. But it's kind of that tone of voice that is very humble, doesn't take itself seriously. It's always cheeky.
Yeah.
They don't pretend to be something they're not. They're in sync with their product.
Speaking of which, and this is another thing that I saw in the last couple of days at the award show, but did you see this text messaging campaign that IKEA did last year?
No.
So, like at 1 a.m. in the morning, you have your Instagram up just scrolling, and they created this super simple campaign. So last year, their product focus was sleep. Like a lot of it was about sleep. How does IKEA as a brand, as a company, help people sleep better? So it's mattress, it's the beds, it's the duvet
light,
and
the sound.
Yeah, exactly. All products around sleep. So that was their product focus. So last year they did this really simple, smart, and cheeky thing. Imagine you're up at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., and you get a DM, and it's from IKEA. And it just says, you up, you as in like you, and up, question mark. That's it. And then if you respond, it will send you a link with a coupon to buy a mattress.
Oh, I didn't know that. But you up is a famous pickup line.
Perhaps that's another cultural...
For many, many generations. So.
Yes, yeah. But what I love the simplicity of it. I love how it's directly tied to their product initiative. I also love subtle technical aspect of it. So like on, those social media platforms, they know when people are using the app actively, right? So they targeted people who are up and then sent a message. Yeah.
I love that.
And so simple, so technically, sophisticated enough that it was contextually the right moment. And then culturally also, speaking their language, but very natural link to the product.
Amazing. Yeah. I mean, but they do that a lot. They do
that a lot. It's just one example.
But I love that. That's amazing example because everything is tied up,
Yeah.
Like when there was like last year at Met Gala, which is like, everyone is watching or at least everyone in fashion. And then Doja Cat was like in a towel immediately.
Yeah.
There was a replication of someone like in the towel and there is a price and it's, like they're just so quick. And the way, again, going back to that synchronization on product and brand marketing is really how the language is the same. They know that their target audience is those who are furnishing their first apartment.
College students or college grads.
So that's you up. That's it. That's they speak that language. They're not really pretending to be anything they're not. And that's really refreshing.
Yes.
Because there is such thing as aspirational and so on. But IKEA dives into lifestyle and finds funny moments there. Have you seen today's April 1st joke? That IKEA decided their stores are too confusing. So they decided to do one long store that's 2 kilometers long and it has the departments one after another. And it just looked amazing and very real.
That is a real problem. I mean, their store is like a maze and, on purpose it's kind of confusing because you have to go through pretty much every aisle to get to the exit.
Exactly. I'm pretty sure that it's April's Fool. Well, but what do I know?
It's brilliant.
I think, but it's very IKEA. It's very IKEA to do that. I don't know. I'm just going to leave that out for you guys. But
no, I'm sure this is April 1st joke.
I know.
Yeah, that is great.
Pokemon. Imagine you park your car like.
Yeah, because like it's not realistic. I mean, you can't, if you park your car on this side, then what are you gonna do?
I know. It's like long ways to go.
But so on this note, products building brands or product, we are in an era where products do build brands. This sounds like a contradiction to what I said, I think in an episode, a couple episodes ago. But I have a feeling that Apple is on a slow downhill slope as a brand. Yeah. And recently, I think like 2 or 3 weeks ago, they had an announcement with new product lineup. And it was so underwhelming. There was nothing new.
Yeah, I think there hasn't been anything new in a while.
I would say the biggest new product that they had was the Vision Pro 2 years ago, and it got a lot of press back then. But I mean, I know a couple of people who own it, but I don't know who's using it regularly. I think that was the last product innovation that they had. They had an interesting and potentially smart announcement maybe 6 months ago with Apple Intelligence. But when it came out a few weeks ago or a couple months ago, it was like, you create AI emojis or you create an AI summary of your email. And
by the way, that's so annoying because the moment Grok acquired personality, quotation marks, ChatGPT became cheeky. They all do like the same thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I'm like, no, I don't need you to be funny. Just like tell me what, summarize what I need you to summarize.
Yeah.
But I agree. And I think that what you just mentioned is very important because Apple is late to AI.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's the company that was 10 steps ahead.
Yeah. So, Apple, I mean, they do used to do a fair amount of brand marketing in the past, but in a good way, they haven't done a lot of brand marketing because their products were good. Their products built their brand.
It is. And honestly, I think because they're like, how many $1 trillion brand? So their market penetration is really high. And I think what is important, the customer loyalty, that renewal is also really high. Yeah. I'm not going to switch anytime soon. Something really bad needs to happen for me to switch. So I think they calculated what is their customer lifetime value. And they're like, you know what? They're fine. We can coast for next XYZ.
Yeah. So the good news is, to your point, the good news is that they're such a massive, rich company that they can cruise control for the next several years. Yeah. But, you and I, we are older in terms of generation, the younger generation coming into the market. You know what? Samsung is definitely cheaper. They have more variations. And if they're Samsung or other products are as good as Apple, then why do they need to buy Apple? Why would they buy Apple?
And I will say one thing. Even though Apple, as you said, is, it's still cool. Don't ask me why. It's maybe not as cool as it was 20 years ago, definitely. But at the same time, it's like you still want to have accessories that your friends have. So in a set, like tech accessories, so you're going to still, like for whatever reason, that is still that equation is like, oh, if you're a creative person going back to the first point, you're going to use Mac, not PC. So for better or for worse, I think
there's a cachet.
Sort of, if your parents use iPhones, you're going to have iPhone. If your friends have iPhone, you're going to ask for an iPhone.
Yeah,
and when that changes, like again, it's like it is a product-led branding because you see with Nike, customers expect, don't ask me why, Zeitgeist is that they're not as innovative and groundbreaking as Hoka, as On products, and so on. So when you have that perception in culture, you start having expectations. When you start having expectations, the perception of product changes.
I think another interesting company to watch is Nike, now that you mention it. And that's another brand that has been on a slippery slope for the past year and a half or so. And, they've had some interesting announcements in the recent couple of months or so. They had a Super Bowl spot that I thought was great.
Yeah,
but then a week later, they had this collaboration announcement with Skims, which a lot of people are questioning Like, is that the right thing for the brand?
Well, it's a shortcut. Look, if you want to, cultural relevance can't be bought. They're trying to buy it. It's a cultural shortcut. Look, we don't know what's happening in the company
No.
and so on. At the end of the day, my point is that they can have the schemes partnership. They can have the best brand marketing. Their product needs to become amazing again.
Yeah.
Do you want to go to hit list? And I think that mentioning Nike is a great thing. They did something really, really well. How Nike trolled New Balance in the Cooper flag. Cooper flag is this young guy, and he had unbelievable, like last week, unbelievable scores. And he is still wearing Nike, although he signed up with New Balance. And based ad delivered by Swoosh just on social media. And I love that. Such a simple example of brands being real people, calling each other in a really good humored way around an amazing young athlete. So, because until he gets to NBA, he's under Nike's contract.
Yeah, so like that sort of reaction to culture, what's happening in culture real time. And they've had some good moments recently, being quick on the feet and being part of the conversation real time, and has been a few small moves.
Yeah. What's your hit?
So I think that IKEA text messaging is pretty high on the list. Mm-hmm. Another one, or a couple other ones that I can think of. One is this product review for plant-based mayonnaise. I mean, there are a lot of plant-based mayonnaise products, but all of them, what they say is that it's as good as a real mayonnaise, right? But this company, it's a company called Notco, N-O-T-C-O, Notco. It's a joint venture with Kraft Heinz. They have a plant-based mayonnaise, but in order to promote it, what they did was they went to Reddit and they found a bunch of mayo haters. There are a lot of people who don't like mayonnaise, right? They just physically can't accept it. And then what they did was they made sandwiches with this plant-based mayonnaise and let these mayo haters eat those sandwiches that was made with plant-based mayonnaise.
So wait, how did they find them in real life?
So they actually a bunch of threads on subreddits, right? Yeah, and then they asked for people to apply for it. If you're a mayo hater, get in touch with us. Yeah, so they got a bunch of people.
Yes.
Yeah, and then they created these product review videos of mayo haters eating the sandwiches made with this plant-based mayo. The reactions from these mayo haters are they're like literally vomiting. And it sounds disgusting, but it's actually really convincing. So it's sort of reverse psychology. Hey, you know what? These mayo haters hate this fake.
It's so real that they hate it with the equal passion.
Exactly.
I love that. Yeah.
So instead of saying, hey, I'm a mayo lover and I love it, this plant-based mayonnaise, they actually took the opposite direction.
I know.
And I thought it was just
really
so clever and so simple and very authentic.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So the IKEA text message and this, reaction films from mayo haters.
And then what else do we want to, what do we want on a very high level leave our audience with?
I would say that there's still a lot of room for creativity and for fun, engaging, and serious business opportunities for many, many brands. I think it's easy to be cynical. Everything has been done. And yeah, true, everything has been done. But at the same time, there's the IKEA example that I just mentioned. It's such a simple execution that you could have done it 10 years ago if you wanted to, but nobody thought of it until now. So and especially coming out of a recent experience of judging things, I felt quite encouraged that, it's kind of up to the individual, up to us to think of creative, playful, fun ideas to impress the world. Yeah. And I think the other thing that I would say is, and this is something that I talked with my colleagues recently pretty intensely, like AI is everywhere these days. And the bad news about AI is that it's actually already having tangible negative impact, particularly for college graduates. So a lot of companies are hiring. If you look at the job labor market at large, it looks like the job market is actually pretty good. But if you actually look at particularly college graduates, they're in a really tough spot because especially big companies, they're not hiring. And then, I teach graduate level college students. And compared to say like 5 years ago, they have a lot more trouble getting a job. Like 5 years ago, before the graduation, 90% of my students had job offers from Google, Amazon, Facebook, what have you. Now it's the opposite. Like only 10, 20% of them have job offers and 80% of them are still looking for a job.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's a bad news. That's a bad news, right? But the good news is that just because you use AI doesn't mean that you are better. What matters is, do you care about what you do enough that you spend more time than the other people?
That's it. It's a thoughtful use of AI. You can partner with AI to help you do your job better. If you care, you're going to use it in a way, hey, do research on this, save me the time, but you're still going to train it on your material. You're still going to give that imprint. Absolutely. I absolutely agree. And I think it's great in that sense. Yeah. And I do think it's great that those college graduates on the plus side have that AI literacy in that sense. But again, that is going to create a big difference among those who are very ambitious and driven and thoughtful and caring, and those who are not necessarily that yet, It's really what you see, sometimes it's obvious and sometimes it's just your partner in kind of like distributed cognition, so to speak.
Yeah. So I would say, just as a final thought, I would say on that note, those who care more will win. Regardless of the age, regardless of the profession, regardless of the expertise, those who care more will win.
I love that. I did such a lovely note. So I'm not going to interrupt that. Let's just sit with it. And because my thing was like, I agree, like mic drop for me.
My job, yes. My job. I have a mic right here.
Because that's what that season 1 was really about, our conversation. And so thank you very much for being part of it. And thank you everyone who listened to season 1 of Hitmakers, and stay tuned for season 2 coming soon.
All right. See you around, everybody.